Welcome to my review of Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. So I just finished the book a few days ago and I am finally ready to talk about it. I have all my thoughts semi-organized and I want to share my thoughts with you. First and foremost, overall, I do think the book was okay. It was decent. I definitely enjoyed it more than Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, so that is a plus. I feel like that last book, it was pretty boring in general, but this one was far less boring, more interesting, so I'm happy with that. And it definitely is better than some of the other books I've been reading in general. At least the plot moved. In some of my other books that I have DNF'd, it was because the story was going nowhere. So of course we had a story here and I really did appreciate that. And I did appreciate all of the Easter eggs and everything that we got to see and sort of discover, and everyone has these theories and it's fun to be a part of something that is an amazing world that Suzanne brought to life. But the main issues that I had with this book were the writing, just general writing things. So with that being said, it's not worth not reading. I think it definitely adds stuff to the world, far more than the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes did, as far as lore goes, because don't get me wrong, in addition to all the Easter eggs, I guess a lot of people are talking about her message. She did a really great job, obviously, with that, as she has been doing, but for me, it was just the writing that really fell flat for me. So let's get into it. Let's start with chapter 1. Okay, this is when I knew I was going to be up against something here. We are introduced to 18 new characters in chapter 1, 23 characters total. Chapter 1 is 22 pages. So that's an average of one character per page, which I'm pretty sure was not the case. I'm pretty sure we have a few characters per page in some instances, and that was really tough for me because I was like, who are these people? And are they even going to be relevant by the end of the book? And some of them were not. Some of these characters were not relevant by the end of the book. Some were made relevant, but I feel for example, Hattie, the one who makes the liquor, I feel like that whole thing, that could have been removed altogether. I don't feel like we really needed her. Now I get that it adds to Haymitch's character, because Haymitch ends up being an alcoholic and he starts as someone who doesn't drink but makes alcohol. There's a thing there, but I think it could have been implemented in a way that didn't involve another character. But I mean, especially that she wasn't a significant part of the story itself. I mean, if she was a significant part of Haymitch's life, that's debatable, because she did help him raise money, get extra money, so that is one thing. But the characters that we were introduced to, and keep in mind, some of these you might not consider a character, but the peacekeepers are one character. They are a group of people. The Capitol, that is, I consider a character. So we have Haymitch, his younger brother Sid, and his mom and his pa. The Capitol, Lenore, his girlfriend, the Game Makers, Hattie, the Peacekeepers, Clark, Burdock, Tam, Astrid, Mary Lee, Blair, Maisie, the mayor, Drusilla, Bascom, Luella, Maisie, Wyatt, and Woodbine. It was just so much, and I feel like some of these characters could have been introduced later, or we could have learned more about them later, because there was a lot of times where we got in character introduction and then it was comma, what they do, comma, continuing. And I hate those kind of introductory phrases, because it's just no, I feel like we could have found out that, Maisie Lee works at a candy shop better than Maisie Lee Donner, who works at her family's shop, comma, blah, 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 blah. It could have been introduced via dialogue, or her being at the shop herself, or some other way she could have talked about it during the games, finding out what she does. I think just the amount of characters and the way they were introduced, that was a big problem for me, especially obviously in chapter 1. And it did not stop at chapter 1, it continued on, but obviously less and less. Another thing that I didn't quite like about chapter 1 is I feel like the 50th games deserved, you know, a more grand entrance than it got. Like, I felt like this quarter quell, this second quarter quell, just, it did not get the grand entrance that it so deserved. It was just like, hey, it's the 50th Hunger Games, and not like, this is a big deal. So yeah. Another like slight issue that I had with this book, as far as like the writing or storytelling as well, is the relationship between Haymitch and Lenore. We are told constantly, like, I guess throughout chapters 1 through 3, and it is sprinkled throughout the book, that I love you, I love you, I love you, you too, I love you. Like, they're saying I love you to each other very much, and they have an emotional kind of goodbye on Reaping Day. But we only really get to see them together one time in like chapter 1. So my brain knows that, yes, these characters love each other. Sure, okay. But my heart is not convinced. So later on, when, you know, at the end of the book, when Lenore dies, it doesn't get me as much as it should, because I'm like, I don't even know Lenore herself, you know, like, I haven't had time to connect with Lenore. I haven't had time to connect with Lenore and Haymitch as a couple. And so when Lenore dies, it's just like, it just really falls flat for me. And like, the Hunger Games made me cry. The first 3, which, by the way, I did not read as a teenager. The first time of me reading them was like 2 or 3 years ago. And watching the movies too. Like, I completely new to the Hunger Games 2 or 3 years ago. And they made me cry a lot. The movies and the books. And I feel like that's because just more time was spent. And it's not only because, you know, it was a trilogy and she had so much time for world building. A lot of books that are one book can make you cry. It doesn't have to be a series that can make you cry. So it's possible to have set up this novel to where it could have been impactful for it just being, I guess I'm going to call it a standalone, even though it is a part of a series. But as far as Sunrise on the Reaping goes, it's going to be the only Sunrise on the Reaping. So the only book where Haymitch is the main character. So it could have been more emotionally impactful, but unfortunately it was not. And that just makes me really sad, because I really like a good story where you really do connect to the characters and you really care for them. But I barely even cared for Haymitch. And so caring for Lenore, that was like, I just didn't really get there, even though I wanted to. Like, I tried to feel something, but I couldn't feel like that much. Just for the sole fact that we just didn't get enough time with the two of them and with her, and for me to really connect with them. Also, as far as Haymitch and Lenore goes, even if we couldn't get a lot of time with them, or even if we did, the author of Call Me By Your Name, I remember reading an interview where he said, if you want to convince, or if you like want to write a good love story, like, avoid using the word love. Don't let the characters say explicitly, I love you, or something like that. And for example, in Call Me By Your Name, I do see that, like, where you can tell that they love each other, and you don't need to hear them say it. And even if they do, like, at the end of the book, it's like, it's earned, it's deserved. So the fact that in chapter 1 we get I love you already, it like hurts. I feel like if you want to convince readers of love, you have to see those characters either like fall in love or go through something together. And Lenore and Haymitch never went through anything together. So hearing them say I love you, it's just jarring. And then, like, on top of that, I feel like at least it would have been more impactful if we never heard them say I love you until like maybe Haymitch was in the games. Like let's say Haymitch was like starving or something, for example, and then he's like looking like in the sky and the camera's on him, and like he's saying, I'm sorry I never got to say I love you, Lenore, like I love you so much. And then like Haymitch is expecting to die, but then like he survives or something. I think that would have been like more impactful than him just saying it so much in the beginning and then him just dropping it. I love her, I love her, I love you, like all fire. Like it would have definitely been just more impactful for him to say it in a vulnerable moment. And it wasn't revealed in a vulnerable moment. And the reason why I didn't really connect with Haymitch too much is because he felt like he was just never going to make it home. So that made it very, very uninteresting. Just the fact that he was just like, oh, I'm not going to come back. Like, I'm never going to make it. Like, it was just like, okay, why am I reading this? And then we already know that he is going to win. So I think it would have just been better for him to be like, I got this. I got this. Like, I need to make it home. And not to make it more like the original Hunger Games, which it very much was like, which I personally don't have a problem with. I don't have a problem with it being like the Hunger Games 2.0, or someone called it the Hunger Games in a different font. Like, personally, that does not bother me. But if you're going to do it, you have to do it right? And I feel like that Haymitch needed to be like determined, like I guess Katniss was. You know, she was like, I gotta make it home for Prim. And since it was this similar anyway, Haymitch might as well have been like, I'm gonna make it home for Sid. You know, like more determined, just like determined to like make it out. Like he turns into a beast instead of just like being like, oh, I'm not gonna make it home, oh, blah blah blah. It just makes him winning also just less interesting, because his goal wasn't even to win. Like his goal was to ultimately just disrupt the whole system, bring the Capitol down. His goal wasn't even to make it home. It would have been, so it just doesn't make sense. I feel like if this was a book by itself, he would have been successful in bringing the Capitol down and dying in doing so, right? I think that would have made a good story, but unfortunately, we do know that Haymitch lives. Haymitch lives, so it would have just been better to see him be like determined and go through more obstacles of having to actually win, instead of like going off and having this separate plan for it to fail, and that's kind of what aided in him winning. So like, yeah, I feel like the storytelling could have just been a bit better for me to like connect with Haymitch, and Haymitch and Lenore and Lenore. Sorry for the noise if you can hear that. They're doing work. Okay, so something else that really got me is the constant explaining. Like, there's a lot of like explaining going on, and also like exposition and like info dumping and like throwing back to the past. Like something happens and then it's interrupted with 5 years ago when we were kids. This is why this reminds me of this. I hate that. Like, I feel like I want to continue with what is going on in the present, with the action that is happening now, and not always going back to what happened in the past. That's one of like my pet peeves in writing, and that happened a lot in this book. So it really just distracted me from what was going on. It took away from my enjoyment of being able to just like enjoy everything that was going on. I felt like some of these things, they didn't even have to be told with like a throwback. Like, I think that through like our narration, at least, like I feel like it would have been better done through like dialogue, or throw like maybe setting it up, like I don't know, dialogue, or having like just not including it at all, you know, or just restructuring the novel in a way that allows for some of these things to happen. Like, and then we get to Reaping Gate, we get to the games, then the end. Like, I understand it definitely would be difficult, but writing is not easy, so I feel like it would have been worth the time and effort to see if we could figure out if there was a way that we could write it without over narrating, over explaining, always interrupting what's going on to like talk about something that happened in the past. Another thing that I thought could be better was, so you remember when Haymitch, Ampert says my dad is here, and Haymitch meets Beetee, and then Beetee is like, I know you're wondering why I'm here. And then he tells him why he's there, and the reason why, as we know, is that he's being punished by the Capitol for what he did, and his son got picked also for that reason, right? It was like a setup. But wouldn't that, I feel like emotional information should be during either emotional scenes or intimate scenes. I feel like that could have been much better if it was put in just like if Ampert had told if Ampert had told Haymitch that, like, during the games, like, imagine if Ampert didn't get killed by mutts. Imagine if instead he's like starving again, and he just is very vulnerable, and he tells Haymitch, he's like, my dad is watching this right now, and I feel bad because the reason why I'm here is because, like, he did this bad thing, and then he just dies, right? I don't know. I feel like it could have just been better. Even if Ampert wasn't starving, I feel like during the games, like, that's when all the fun information should come out, because everybody is vulnerable, and it just would just make it, like, more impactful, and Haymitch would have something to think about, like, as he's trying to survive himself. Another thing that I had, like, a weird vibe with was the discovery that Haymitch makes about Snow and his District 12 cubby girl, Lucy Gray. I was unconvinced. I'm sorry. It just did not make sense to me how Haymitch connected those dots. Like, I feel like we needed a little bit more planting of some seeds before Haymitch made that discovery. You know what I mean? I just don't think it was convincing at all. Like, it was not convincing at all. I hated it. It was a little bit of a mess. It was like like, I just didn't understand how Haymitch could make that connection the way that he did. I don't know. It was very sus to me. A little too convenient. But, you know, oh well. And then the last thing that I didn't really vibe with was that we got a recap of the closing ceremony from the Capitol's perspective, when it wasn't even that much different than what actually happened in the games, and we already read the entire games, and then to have to reread the games via recap, it was just like, I feel like those pages could have gone towards something else, like building a relationship between Haymitch and Lenore, for example. But yeah, just having to reread the games after reading the games was not a fan of that. But now let's just move on to the thing that I loved the most about this book, and it was the epilogue. It was the epilogue. The epilogue made me feel something, and I was really happy for that. We got cameo from Katniss and Peeta, and of course, because I really love the original trilogy, that of course this would make me feel something. I love the trilogy, and so I loved seeing Katniss and Peeta, and just seeing, like, just having it be just so far in the future, and bringing things full circle. I really like that. And well, while I'm talking about that, I should also go into detail a little bit about, I loved that we see the origin of the Mockingjay pin. That was one thing. I feel like it was cool that we met Burdock Everdeen and Otho Malark, I think. It was fun getting those little cameos and stuff, and meeting another Covey girl to connect it to the previous book, Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. So yeah, the book was pretty decent. 10 out of 10 for lore, but writing could have been quite a bit better. And if you're a writer who enjoyed this review, I definitely recommend you check out my 6-part series where I go into a little bit more detail about the writing mistakes I think Collins made, and I give you tips and advice on how to avoid it in your own writing. And also, don't forget to check the information in my description, because if you follow me on Instagram or TikTok, if you DM me, I do give you feedback on your first page, whether it is a manuscript or a screenplay. Yeah, so thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye! Hello fellow storytellers and story lovers. I want to thank you kindly for watching my video. If you want to see more from me, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and follow me on Instagram at MelodyCLane. If you're looking for someone to help you develop your story, I'm available. You can find more information on my website. The link is in the description below.